Hello, and welcome. My name is Mr. Spooks, and tonight, I'll be sharing two stories that might just keep you up a little longer than you planned. Each story you're about to hear is based on true, real-life encounters from the people who lived through them. On this channel, you will find many similar stories. Some are strange, some are unexplainable, and others will be the kind you wish you could forget. So get comfortable. And just remember, a story might sound unbelievable until it happens to you. My name's Claire. I'm 25 years old. And this happened about 2 years ago when I first moved into my own apartment in northern Michigan during my studies to be a nurse. It was a small one-bedroom on the second floor of my building. Nothing to shout about. But I was happy. It was mine, and it suited what I needed perfectly. The street outside was narrow, with another set of apartments right across from mine. My living room window faced directly into the windows across the street, and at night, I'd sometimes see people's silhouettes behind their blinds and curtains. People watching TV, cooking, cleaning, the usual stuff. I found myself people watching. Hours could pass. I found this oddly comforting, like I wasn't completely alone all the time. Especially late at night. I had lived there for just over 2 months and everything was fine. But unfortunately, that all changed one night. And what I'm about to recount still doesn't make sense to me. Due to my studies, I often got home quite late. On this night, it was around 11 p.m., and I was eating dinner on the couch watching TV with my lamp on. My couch was directly in front of the window to my living room, so I could see right out to the apartments across the street. I saw the familiar sights of silhouettes, and all was good. Just another normal night before I had to get up early in the morning. But suddenly, something different caught my eye. I noticed a strange shape in one of the apartments, one that I hadn't taken any notice of before. On the ground floor. The apartment had its lights on, and at first, I couldn't quite decipher what I was looking at. It maybe looked like a shadow behind the blind. I muted the TV and stood up from the couch to take a closer look through my window. That's when it became clearer. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a person. A person stood behind the blind. Just stood there, as still as a statue. I didn't think much of it, and I wasn't alarmed, but I can remember it vividly. But I watched for around a minute or two out of curiosity, and still no movement the whole time. At first, I figured they were doing the same thing I was, zoning out. Maybe on their phone or something, which I couldn't see through the blind. But then, just as I was going to sit back down on the couch, slightly, the person slowly raised their hand and started waving at me through the blind. I now realized they had been watching me the whole time as they stood. Only I was watching them out of curiosity, whereas this wave they were giving me felt off, maybe even slightly sinister. I switched off my lamp and decided to go to bed as I had an early start. I didn't think too much of it initially, but as I lay in bed, it occupied my mind. The next day I went to work as normal and got in quite late again. I was eating dinner and watching TV when I caught myself looking out of the window again and the same figure, same time. The person in the apartment, facing my window, with the lights on and the blind down. Only this time, they were already waving. I thought, how long have they been there, watching? I then stepped to my window again for a closer look, and as soon as I did, the person stopped waving. They then moved their hand to the blind cord and started pulling slowly. I found my body tense and my curiosity peak. This quickly changed, however, when I saw what the person was wearing. They were dressed all in black, and their face had a confused, creepy, grinning clown mask on. My stomach immediately dropped. Before I could move or process what I was seeing, they then pulled out a knife from behind their back and started clearly tapping on the glass, their gaze remaining locked on me. I immediately screamed and bolted to my phone and called the police. I was terrified. The whole time the operator was telling me to stay calm, but I couldn't. Whilst on the phone, I walked back over to my window and the person was gone. All the lights were off and the blind back down. I checked to make sure my door was locked, and it was. The operator stayed on the phone with me the whole time the police were on their way. It felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life, just expecting this person to somehow start banging down my door. The police finally arrived, and I told them exactly what had happened and pointed to the apartment across the street. They went over to check it out and said they didn't see any signs of a break-in, but said they'd file a report. Typical. The next morning, my neighbor, I'll call him John, asked me what all the commotion last night was about. When I told him, his whole face changed. He said, "Claire, that apartment's been empty for 2 years." My name's Ryan. I'm 20 years old now, and this happened about 5 years ago when my parents left me home alone for the first time. We lived in a small rural town. Our house sat at the edge of a dirt road that backed straight onto a dense stretch of forest. I used to go exploring with my dad and our dog Stanley almost every weekend. It was one of those places where the forest kind of becomes part of your home. On one Saturday night, my parents were at a friend's party a couple hours out of town. They trusted me to stay home alone for the first time. I was happy. I liked being independent. I had Stanley for company, a pizza in the oven, and a couple movies queued up. Honestly, it was a great night of freedom. By the time I headed to bed, it was around 1 a.m. I was lying there scrolling through my phone, lights off, just about to doze off, when I started hearing something strange. At first, I thought I imagined it. It sounded faint, like distant children's laughter. It was so unexpected that I just lay there for a minute listening, trying to figure out if maybe I'd left the TV on downstairs. It sounded like soft giggling, echoing through the air outside my window. I got out of bed and went downstairs. The house was dark, except for the faint glow from the kitchen clock. The TV was off. There was no rain outside. Everything was silent, except that faint laughter. It was clearer now, and I realized with a chill it was coming from the forest behind our house. I thought, am I going mad? What the hell would children be doing out this late? For a few seconds, I stood with my face pressed at the kitchen window, trying to see if I could identify anything, any movement from the forest. Nothing. Just darkness. The laughter seemed to be getting closer somehow, like it was getting louder and spreading through the trees. But the longer it went on, the less it sounded playful. It started to sound off. It wasn't joyful laughter anymore. It was sharp, distorted, too repetitive, like it was looping itself. Stanley started growling. I couldn't tell if he could also hear it, or could just sense my uneasy energy. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it was shaking the floor. The laughter now sounded completely sinister, like it was taunting me. I swear, it felt like it was coming from all directions around the house. It's the most scared I've ever been in my whole life. Still to this day. I felt like I was going to collapse out of fear. That was enough. I ran back upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and called my parents. My dad picked up on the third ring. He sounded a little drunk, but instantly alert when he heard the fear in my voice. I told him what I was hearing, that there were kids laughing in the woods. He was quiet for a moment, then said,
"It's okay, Ryan. Just stay inside with Stanley, keep the doors locked, and try to get some sleep. We'll be home first thing in the morning."
He sounded calm, but something about the way he said it didn't sound reassuring. More like he didn't want to scare me further. After we hung up, I curled up on the bed with Stanley. He lay across my legs, still growling now and then. I must have fallen asleep shortly after, completely drained. The next morning, my parents got home early. I could tell they wanted to talk. They looked serious. They both sat down beside me on the couch and explained that long before our house was built, there used to be an elementary school in that same area. It had burned down sometime in the late 1800s, after a fire spread through the building during the night. Several children had died inside. My dad added that they often hear the laughter too. He said he'd specifically heard it himself a few times, while he was out checking on the generator late at night. He even said that he'd walked up to the forest line to check, but every time he'd followed the sound, it just seemed to move further away back into the forest, always just out of reach, like it wanted to draw him in. He told me he stopped trying and just accepts it now. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Although I did feel better that my parents had heard it too, and believed me. At least I wasn't insane. From that night on, when I lay in bed again most nights, I could swear I could hear it faintly, drifting from the woods, like it was always mocking me. I never went into that forest again, not even in daylight. And I never stayed home alone after that either. My parents sold the house a few months later, and we moved closer to town. But even now, every time I drive past a forest, something in me freezes. Because sometimes, I swear I can still hear that laughter. If there's one thing these stories remind us of, it's that fear knows no bounds and can come from the simplest of things. Each story you've heard tonight was shared by someone who lived through an experience they still can't fully explain. And maybe you've had one too. If you've ever had a creepy, unexplainable, or downright terrifying experience of your own, and you'd like to hear it narrated right here on the channel, please contact me directly on YouTube by sending me a message. I will read every submission personally, and who knows, your story might be the next one to keep everyone up at night. Until next time, this has been Mr. Spooks, and sleep well if you can.